The Evil Wizard is Castle Crasher's final boss, and in this video, I'll be beating the game while playing as him. This mod not only adds the Evil Wizard as a playable character, but it also adds some custom boss fights as well. So show some support to the creator of the mod and let's begin the run. After dancing in the barracks, I watched as my twin brother stole the crystal from the king. And I'm not completely sure why the king wasn't scared of me since I look identical to the guy that just robbed him, but hey, at least he doesn't judge a book by its cover. Playing as the Evil Wizard meant I got to use some pretty OP magic. For example, just watch as my heavy magic absolutely decimates these poor barbarians. Another great thing about this swinging attack I can do is that it generates me a ton of XP, since it hits enemies so many times for low damage. After wiping out the first couple waves of enemies, I may have glitched into this cutscene just a little bit, then I killed some more barbarians and now it was time to upgrade my stats. I put all of my stat points into magic, since I was using my heavy magic like 99% of the time. Then I headed over to the blacksmith level to grab the compass and to pick up the beholder to make my magic even more OP. I also went over to pick up the dragon sword, since you know that's the Evil Wizard's weapon, but for some reason the game wouldn't let me get it, so I had to settle with the glow stick, which isn't the end of the world since the glow stick gives a lot of magic and defense. Now that I had put over 5 points into my magic stat, I was able to see what type of light magic this guy had, which was a bit of a letdown. After brutally slaughtering some more barbarians, it was time for the first boss fight. The War Machine. As you can see, this boss fight was not much of a challenge, but trust me, as the video goes on, the boss fights get much harder. After spamming my heavy magic a bit more, it was time for our first real boss fight, the Barbarian boss. And although he put up more of a fight than the War Machine, I was still able to easily kill him with the use of the swinging attack. And yeah, I'm gonna call it that the whole video, because I don't really know what it's actually supposed to be called. But anyways, this allowed us to save the first princess. I decided to put my stat points into strength, since that was what made the swinging attack do more damage. The magic only increased the duration, which was still important, but I needed both stat lines to be upgraded. The next level was the forest entrance, which wasn't really that interesting since the thieves didn't really stand a chance against my heavy magic. Before entering the thieves forest, I decided to change my loadout a bit, switching the beholder with Giraffe so I could max out my strength and magic faster. Just like the forest entrance, I was able to beat the thieves forest with ease. One thing that did slow me down a bit was the thieves arrows. The only real weakness of the OP heavy attack is if an enemy shoots a projectile at you while you are mid-swing, since this will stop the attack, which also makes you lose quite a bit of mana since the attack is pretty expensive. The Troll Mother is the first boss fight so far that took me over a minute to kill, which is definitely not a lot, but hey, good for you, Troll Mother. The reason she was harder to kill was the fact that she kept running around, which made it harder for me to hit her with my heavy magic, since the swinging attack only really goes in one line, but all of the Troll Mother's efforts were not enough to save her. After surviving the abandoned mill, it was time to do some swimming. Nothing much happened in the Rapids Ride level, since I was able to take out all the enemies with ease. Even the catfish was a piece of cake, as he didn't even get to enter his swimming phase. I invested my stats into both strength and magic, and then I headed for the Tall Grass Fields level. I'm still a bit surprised that the king is not fazed in the slightest about me looking exactly like the Evil Wizard. Maybe he's not the brightest guy. But now it was time to face the bear boss, who I immediately bested with my button mashing skills, and just like the other bosses, the bear boss was easily taken care of. And I also made an absolute fool of this beefy bear. And speaking of beefy, did you know that if you subscribe to Monk CC, you will also become beefy? And if you don't believe me, I'm sure that this picture will convince you. After entering Pipistrello's cave, I assumed that this boss fight would be just as easy as the last few, and I was right. Although the boss fight was still pretty much effortless, I found out that not upgrading defense the entire run was probably not the best idea. I found this out after getting licked by Pipistrello, which actually did some pretty decent damage to me. So now that I knew the importance of upgrading defense in this run, I decided to completely ignore that and continue to upgrade my magic. The Flowery Fields level wasn't very eventful, besides me hitting this perfect catapult. The only problem with fighting enemies like the Coneheads was that their bombs would often hit me in the air, which was pretty annoying, since it would stop me from using the swinging attack. Now the Groom boss fight was the only thing so far that kind of worried me, since the Groom is really fast and unpredictable. Luckily he wasn't as hard as I anticipated, since I got him below half health in just a few seconds. And after he stopped playing the piano, I was able to finish him. One thing that kind of annoyed me during the parade level was the fact that I couldn't actually hit the giant troll with my swinging attack. Not that it really mattered, since I was still able to kill him quickly. After killing some more Coneheads and thieves in the Cyclops cave, it was time to enter the Cyclops Fortress. Just like literally every single level in this run, all I had to do was spam my OP heavy magic and the enemies would just get deleted. Then I had an extremely, gruelingly difficult fight against the Cyclops, and we had successfully saved another princess. Now, Lava World so far was the only level that actually made me have to try a bit. The fire demons were surprisingly more annoying than literally every single enemy that I had encountered so far, and this was because they always found a way to throw a fireball right as I tried to use my heavy magic. Also, these fireballs did a pretty meaty amount of damage. After catching a glimpse of my evil twin brother and defeating the volcano boss, it was time to face the dragon and sock puppet. Since I couldn't completely abuse my swinging attack on the dragon since he was too high up, I was forced to kill him with just my sword. After beating Lava World, I kinda forgot about the industrial castle, so I went to the dock and was not able to set sail. Fortunately, the industrial castle was much easier than Lava World was, so I was able to spare the prince and collect the telescope. To be honest, the pirate ship level was probably the easiest one so far, since I didn't even get hit once, and the ninjas kinda just gave up after that. Most of the time that I spent in the desert level was just me waiting for the scarabs to get out of the sand. So yeah, not much to talk about here, but hey, at least I didn't get crushed by any blocks of sand. After being abducted and probably probed by the aliens, I wiped out everyone in their ship by spamming my heavy magic. I know, big surprise. Also, look at this almost perfect run through the steam machines. Not much happened in the desert chase level, besides me absolutely dusting the Saracen on a camel. After chopping up some more sand dudes, it was time to play a bit of volleyball. Apparently the evil wizard actually knows a thing or two about volleyball, since the other team got decimated 10-0, and I wasn't even playing dirty either. Now it was time to enter the marsh. Just like Lava World did, this level gave me a bit of a reality check, and actually made me use a couple of potions. It wasn't even that the enemies were strong or anything, it was just that I had invested literally every stat point into strength and magic. Although I was a bit scared at first, fortunately the corn boss was all bark no bite, since I was able to defeat him with ease, and I got to eat a lot of free popcorn. The flooded temple was pretty uneventful, other than the fact that I accidentally broke the game for a little bit, but anyways, I chopped up Medusa and continued on my journey. The full moon actually introduced a new item, which was the banana. And not just any banana, an exploding one. The banana was a throwable item that exploded on impact, and also split into a few smaller bananas that also detonated. This item was pretty cool, but not extremely useful since I was mostly just using my OP swing attack. Snow World gave me a bit of trouble since there were so many projectiles being thrown around me, but other than that, the Eskimos didn't really stand a chance. And after another intense boss fight, the third princess was rescued. Now this far into the run, everything has been smooth sailing. I mean, the hardest levels only required me to use a couple of potions. Now the thing that kind of confused me was the strangely blue evil wizard, but who knows, maybe he was just wearing some different clothes or something. Fortunately, everything became normal again in the wizard castle interior. Except for those guys. These blue cult minions were faster, stronger, and way more annoying than the regular Joe Schmo cult minions. And to make my life even easier, these cult minions spawned in much bigger groups than usual. On top of that, after defeating the second wave of enemies, I was greeted by another cult minion variant. These red guys were the same as the blue ones, which meant they were also annoying to deal with. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, they did. After killing all the cult minions and entering the tunnel at the end of the castle, I was faced with two cult minion mini bosses. Since I had used almost all of my potions up beforehand, I was easily defeated by these guys. Before trying again, I decided to switch up my loadout, grabbing Hawkster and the Necromancer sword. Hawkster would be able to supply me with food since there were so many enemies, and the Necromancer sword would give me an extra 7 points to my defense and 2 points to my magic. Now that I had a better plan and loadout, I was able to take out the cult minions while only using a couple of potions. While fighting the mini bosses, I was able to take out almost half of the red one's health with just one swing. The only problem is that after they hit you down, it is almost impossible to get far enough away to be able to use the swinging attack again, since it takes a second to activate. Even though I was doing better than my first attempt, I still was bested by the cult minions. On my third attempt, I was able to do some early damage to these guys, which cut their health down by a pretty large amount. Luckily, after killing the blue minion, I was able to gain enough space to use my heavy magic, which was able to successfully kill the final mini boss. Fortunately, the painter boss fight was a breeze, and we were able to progress to... You gotta be kidding me. Thankfully, the custom painter boss also ended up being a breeze, since he didn't even get to go in his second phase. And now it was time to face the undead Cyclops. And if you couldn't already tell, the final 4 boss fights are all custom, which means that they're probably gonna be a lot more difficult. The Undead Cyclops fight was pretty much the same until he jumped on top of his coffin. Rather than just having one undead groom, he spawns 5 of them. And this isn't like vanilla Castle Crashers, where you just wait for the Cyclops to step off of his coffin and let in the groom, since you actually have to kill the 4 new grooms. Now this wouldn't be that bad if the main groom didn't always get in the damn way when I'm trying to use my magic. This boss fight was definitely harder than the painter was, but overall it was still easier than fighting the cult minions earlier. Now it was time for the necromancer boss fight, which was definitely the hardest one yet. First of all, you had to kill 5 waves of enemies before you even had a chance to fight the necromancer. And of course, these weren't just regular waves of enemies, because you know, why would they be? But luckily, the first wave just consisted of regular enemies, making it really easy to complete. Since I would just use my swinging attack on one side of the arena, and then when I landed, I would use it again on the opposite side. This strat also helped me wipe out the second wave, which was just regular enemies and some beefies. I will say that I got stuck in the middle with all the enemies, and it was very difficult to get back to the side of the arena. So I pretty much just have to avoid being in the middle at all costs. The third wave of enemies was similar to the second, since the only enemies being spawned were regular and beefy ones. Now the fourth wave is where things got tricky. The necromancer spawned a beefy cult minion and 4 custom enemies, who were all much faster, stronger, and harder to hit than the other waves. The reason these custom enemies were so annoying to deal with was the fact that they shot lots of projectiles that would stop me from using my swinging attack. Although they put up a better fight than all of the other waves, they were still no match for my heavy magic. And now it was time to face the 5th wave, which was definitely one of the harder ones. This wave consisted of a bunch of buffed skeletons and a giant one. There were also a couple of beefy skeletons sprinkled into the mix, which didn't really make things better for me. The giant skeleton was a problem, since he would do a stomping attack that would stun me for a brief period of time. Luckily, I was still able to abuse my swinging attack, which allowed me to escape the horde of skeletons. The good thing was that the giant didn't have much health, so after I killed him, the other enemies were easily defeated. Well, maybe not easily defeated, but hey, I killed them all, okay? Now it was finally time to face the necromancer, which shouldn't be too hard since, you know, he's just an itty bitty guy. Well, I kind of ate my words since the necromancer absolutely destroyed me. He attacked so quickly that I couldn't even use my heavy attack on him. Also, since I had such low defense, each hit from the necromancer took a pretty big chunk out of my health. Since I wasn't really able to fight the necromancer regularly, I had to improvise. My plan was just to spam my light magic, which in theory should have kept him pretty much stun locked. Now the problem was that I of course would run out of mana, which gave the necromancer enough time to retaliate. Even though I made a pretty big dent in the necromancer's health, he was still able to get the best of me. After my defeat, I decided to head to the blacksmith to change my loadout a bit. I picked up the club weapon since it would give me an extra 5 strength and 5 defense. I also traded Hawkster for Rami, as Rami would be able to knock over the necromancer when I was low on mana. I took out the first 5 waves using the same strats as last time and faced the necromancer for the second time. Although he was pretty much immune to my swinging attack, I still had hope. I continued with the strategy of using my projectile magic to stunlock the necromancer, and after I ran out of mana, I would hold up my shield and wait for Rami to charge at the necromancer. This strat seemed to be getting his health down slowly but surely, and the plan actually worked really well besides when the necromancer used his splash magic, since I wasn't able to block that attack with my shield. After a couple minutes of spamming my light magic and blocking, the necromancer had been defeated. Before facing the evil wizard, I decided to swap Rami back for Snoot, since I would need as much strength as I could get. And now it was finally time for the final boss. The first difference about the boss fight was that there were 5 crystals instead of 4. These crystals barely spent any time on the floor after launching themselves at me, but luckily I was able to take them out with my swinging attack. Now it was time to face the evil wizard, who was now dark blue. His second phase was pretty much the same as it is in vanilla Castle Crashers, which meant I was able to beat it without struggling. The wizard's balloon phase spawned in a couple of extra wizards, but wasn't really a challenge, since I was doing so much damage. The spider stage was also painless, since I was doing 40 damage per hit. The second balloon phase was a bit more difficult, since the wizard moved in unpredictable patterns and there were a lot more projectiles on the ground. This happened because the lower his health got, the more projectiles would spawn, which was annoying but not that hard to deal with. And now it was time for the final stage, which was a bit underwhelming, especially after the necromancer's fight, but I was able to utilize my heavy magic to quickly take out the evil wizard for good, which allowed us to save the final princess.